how much has the value of an album actually decreased? If I'm going off of my own feelings, I kind of feel like an album is close to worthless now. I mean, I know that's brutal. Both the most successful musicians and YouTubers are going to be the ones that can stay authentically weird. They're almost going to take virality out of their business model.
Hey, so really quickly, this isn't my usual video, obviously, and you can probably guess what we're going to talk about, but I would highly recommend checking out Bandsplaining videos after this. They're beautiful and wonderful. Thank you again to Bandsplaining for being here, and yeah, hope you enjoy the convo, and a convo is always better when there are other people talking. So would love to hear your thoughts, should you have any. That sounded like a roast. You get what I mean.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to have a very special guest. We have Mr. Bandsplaining with us here today. Do you want to give a little blurb about who you are and if anyone, for whatever reason, hasn't seen your stuff?
Yeah, so Bandsplaining, we try to cover the weirder, more obscure, lesser known music genres and music stories that don't typically get covered. But and by the way, when I say weird, I mean that in an endearing way. If something isn't weird, then to me it's boring. So weird is on the good end of the spectrum. So we cover a lot of music from other countries, especially across history. So, like, what were the coolest punk bands in the Soviet Union? The era of electric guitar music in Africa when countries first became independent and started producing this incredible rock fusion music. Stuff like that, I guess, is our specialty. You brought up this question of like, how much has the value of an album actually decreased? If I'm going off of my own feelings, I kind of feel like an album is close to worthless now. I know that's brutal to say. As a musician
Like
myself, I feel like when
monetarily. Yeah.
when I put it up there, it doesn't have inherent value anymore because it's just bits of
Yeah.
data that is streamed, disposably streamed. There is a mathematic answer to this question. I looked at this RIAA sales data chart, and in 2023, the total volume of sales, this is just for the in the US, or it's just for American artists, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was $17 billion. And if you go back to 1990, it was about the same, $17.6 billion.
Mm-hmm.
These are two very comparable years, 1990 to 2023. And it's also interesting because 1990 is exactly 1 year before like the birth of the .com publicly available internet. So
Yeah.
you could say this is squarely in the pre-internet era and then, our modern era. So I mean, if you just look at that, you could say, okay, the value of the music industry was the same in 2023 as it was in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have so many more artists today and so many more albums.
Mm-hmm.
So the pot is the same, $17 billion, but it's being split among way more recording artists. In 1990, there were 21,000 albums released,
Mm.
and in 2023, there were 105,000. There's five times more albums, exactly five times more albums released in 2023, sharing that same $17
Mm.
billion. So that led me to make this very crude calculation that an album is worth 1/5 of its value
Yeah.
today compared to 1990. It is an interesting question of like, does everyone who releases an album deserve to make a living from it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've played a lot of shows,
Yeah.
right? I've played a lot of shows. I never made a living from music either. So I'm putting myself in that category. We did
Sure,
I
sure.
was not able to convince a substantial number of people to turn me into a professional musician, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm not bitter about it. I mean, I think to be so good at songwriting
Mm-hmm.
that society thinks that you should do nothing all day but write more songs. It's actually like an incredibly rare gift that not a lot of people have. So many people like subscribe to this belief that like our best future society is one where you do whatever you're passionate about and you can make a living doing
Mm-hmm.
it. We'll have
Yeah.
Andrew Yang, we'll have the universal basic income.
Right, right, right.
And I'm the one grouch who's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to walk around the park and have like like crappy screamo bands playing all the time because they're passionate about it. I want
Right.
some gatekeeping.
Right.
No offense to the screamo genre.
No,
That's just
no.
what came to mind. The most of loudest music, you know.
And there's something to be said about it's not as hard to make things as it was back in the day because of the democratization of technology, which I feel like is ultimately a positive thing. There's no way I would be able to produce
Totally.
any of the stuff that I do now without it. But there is a pervasive idea, and you're right, like this bitterness of why not me? Oh, I made something. Why aren't people automatically listening to it? Why aren't I earning a living from that? Because it is kind of like a strange idea when you think about it.
Yeah, people, especially because there's people out there who have to clean the streets, repair the dams, and work at the coffee shops, and like it
Yeah.
is, you have to stop yourself and think like, and what I'm doing so important to society that I don't have to do those things? As a YouTuber, I might only be able to do this for a certain amount of time, and then
Yeah.
I have to start roofing houses or
I
removing
can't tell
asbestos.
you how many times I almost became a plumber.
Oh, I
It
mean,
might still happen. Even outside of music, I think with the loss of um pensions or more long secure career tracks, how a lot of people are out of necessity starting to have, I don't even know if it's like shorter cycles of careers or just having multiple careers at the same time. Like that feels like a global theme to me, and just how we consume culture and music. Everything just feels like very kind of fractured, but maybe like the silver lining is in the fracturedness, like the artists or music or whatever that you dedicate your little free time to, you're really passionate and excited about and able to build more of a small but closer knit community in.
it used to be so many people would move to New York specifically for the music scene,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be like you rent a tiny little shoebox to live in because 6 days a week you're going to go out to a show at a different venue, and your whole social life is going to be out in the real world. You know, I went to an amazing show at a little venue. Actually, not really a little venue. It's a big venue, but it's
Uh-huh.
TVI
Oh yeah, I've played
in
there
Queens.
twice. It's
I
so
mean,
sick. It's
it,
awesome.
the people that I hung out with there are like totally the indie scene lifers who are just like so
Yeah.
dedicated, and
Yeah.
uh people from all around the world who are like descending upon Brooklyn as this mecca for, you know,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
this for this scene.
Bushwick and Ridgewood areas. There's definitely there's some really exciting music coming out of here still, but I do feel like communities in general are a bit more insular. Just I think people just don't take as many chances. But there are, as you say, like TVI. If you go, you can run into some amazing, wonderful people from like all ages, which is pretty cool, who are just there to check out the music, have a drink at the really cool looking bar, and it's nice. I'm hoping people, it seems like there's more of an appetite than ever for community. What do you think Spotify's end goal is? Do you think they're just trying to get as much market share as they can and then lower the threshold, or
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. They want to get as much market share as they can. I don't think they're exceptionally evil compared
mm,
to any uh corporation, especially in the music business. We could roughly say Spotify is the new radio as far as importance in the music industry. Throughout the entire history of radio, it was an incredibly corrupt institution where major record labels would pay tons of money to get their own artists on the radio and to top the radio charts. And also, they would pay money to lower the amount of plays for independent artists. There's a ton of corruption around like how an artist gets on a big Spotify playlist. If you're an independent artist, I'm sure you've come across this. There's like hundreds of companies that are like, pay us X amount of money and we'll get you on this many playlists. And some
Yeah,
of
for
them are
sure.
genuine, some of them are total scams. Like you can actually watch tons of videos where people try them out.
Even if you do get on the playlist, if you don't have, a recognizable brand or whatever, like it's a lot of passive listening, right? So people might enjoy your song, they might add it, but they still don't know who you are. There's like much less of a, it seems like, a fan connection.
That's a really
Um
good point, especially if the playlist is like easy listening summer jams 20
right.
2024. A
Dinner party.
good friend of mine and actually our animator at
Uh-huh.
Bandsplaining,
Oh,
his artist name is Tincho. He got
oh,
on
okay.
some big playlist, had like maybe like 10,000 monthly listeners at one point,
Yeah.
which was spiked from maybe 500 before,
Sure, sure.
and
Yeah.
it translated into very little like long term fan
Yeah.
relationships.
Like I wonder about the degradation of the artist's lifespan just across the board. Even outside of music, the trend cycles become shorter and shorter, and maybe that's because we're overwhelmed or whatever. But a lot of times I think maybe more artists than ever are becoming discovered, but the longevity or financial sustainability of artists is just becoming more slim.
Yeah, I wonder if like to make it as an artist today, you have to do more of what you're doing, where are you're not just a musician, but you're also a vlogger, personality, and you almost we're almost going back to like the medieval days where you have to like court patrons. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I did see like I was curious about this. I was just doing a little Reddit research,
Uh-huh, yeah.
seeing what people thought would come after the streaming era. Because like if you go
Mm-hmm.
back to the '90s, I bet everyone's vibe was like, wow, CDs are the apex of music. You
Mm-hmm.
have the highest possible sound quality on this tiny compact
This
disc.
compact disc.
It'll never
Yeah,
get better than this. And
yeah.
and nowadays it's like it seems like such a no-brainer. Like streaming is the most convenient thing in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's going to be replaced by something, but we kind of literally can't fathom it right now because the
Yeah.
technology just isn't there.
Something that won't change and will never change is that fans will always power the music industry and the artists that they love. But I'm really curious about your thoughts on the future of music discovery, music curation. Do you think, we saw the big layoffs with Pitchfork, and what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, it's probably comes as no surprise. I mean, I definitely think YouTube is the future for right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll also be TikTok, Instagram to some extent.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, not just Pitchfork, but like Bandcamp used to have actually an amazing blog where they would post like roundups. I've actually discovered a lot of really cool bands
Hear
that
that.
way, and
Yeah.
and that all disappeared. So these formal publications are all going away, and I think that's because a lot of people are moving to YouTube as how they discover new music. But
Yeah.
what I realize is like people need to feel like they discovered music on their own. I think our younger generations are especially romantic about the late night stumble upon through the algorithm. uh,
Hmm.
People talk very romantically about discovering old city pop albums. It's a
Yeah.
very personal thing. It just has to hit you at perfectly the right moment. And
Hmm.
if someone is showing it to you, uh, you're
Doesn't have
almost
the same
you're
effect.
resistant to it because
Mhm.
you're not going to manipulate me and my emotions. I decide what I get
I
into.
represent me.
So I think with Bandsplaining and like that whole ecosystem of like explainer videos talking about music history, that they're not popular because it's like, hey, check out this awesome music, you're gonna dig it. It's
Hmm.
like, here's a really fascinating story about what's going on in another country, or like what this really fascinating story from music history, or like this really unique beat that Aphex Twin put on this track,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
by having that additional appreciation, people then walk away and suddenly they're a fan of the album.
There's still this desire, or the desire will never go away, for it to be an organic thing that they can claim for their own. Like, people still want to do the proverbial flipping through records. Um, but it's interesting, especially as, in my opinion, it feels like Spotify is just trying to pivot as much as possible to create a model that's maybe similar to YouTube or any other social platform, where um, you just make money based off of how many well, I guess that's what they're doing now, to some degree. But I felt like the recent gating of, you're not going to make money until
You,
you
yeah,
hit the 1,000, just felt like, oh, this is the YouTube partner program. This is
yeah. Wait, real quick, was it 1,000 or 10,000 monthly
it's a
listeners?
thousand. So it's 1,000 streams, and it doesn't
Oh,
roll over year to year. So a lot of artists were upset because it's like, I've earned my 1,000 streams, but now, like, now my back catalog is gonna, like, have no value
oh,
whatsoever
the
every
individual
year,
song needs 1,000 streams. Yeah, so
every
my
single year.
my
Yeah.
band is screwed. I think I think two or three of
Yeah.
our songs will make money this year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty. It's a big move that they just made and executed, and everyone's like, okay.
They're not Bandcamp, so their
Mm-hmm.
premise is not we support indie bands in musical development. I mean,
Yeah.
they are quite transparently a corporation that needs to make money, and they do care about the user experience. They
Mm-hmm.
want they want to beat their competitors by giving you the best user experience. As a user of Spotify, I love it.
Mm-hmm. No,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie,
Every
and
day. No, I
yeah,
agree. I'm on.
and
Yep.
when like Neil Young came back to the platform, I was like, okay, finally, my playlists are complete because there was a lot of holes in them
I feel whole again.
before that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they clearly are trying to balance like how much can we grow
Mm-hmm.
with how little negative press can we get, and they don't care that much about the negative press because like with the Joe Rogan blowback, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they were like, whatever, we'll continue on, and then every 6 months there's like another blow to indie artists, and
Yeah.
they're carrying on just fine. There might reach a day where the indie bands band together and say, all right, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to all move to Tidal, or we're going to start our own Bandcamp 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
And if enough bands leave Spotify en masse, then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, but I don't think Spotify would really care because it's still such a small percentage of their streaming.
Yeah. I'd love to hear your take on why people should make music if they want to, or why people should go out and discover music, or, as someone who is a bit of a curator, like, what are your favorite ways to discover and find new things, that sort of thing.
I was like a super online music fan. It's embarrassing to admit this, but I used to use the 4chan's music board a lot because
Hey.
it was actually an amazing. It wasn't
It
like
was like the
racist,
precursor. It was the
you know.
precursor to Reddit, right? So
Exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah,
people would there were these they called them share threads where people would post download links
oh
to albums, and
cool,
the amount
yeah.
of music I discovered from that. And I've been totally revitalized too, just like going looking at bands in other countries. Like just one day I wake up and I'm like, I wonder what sort of underground music there is in China. And
Yeah.
I'll go on a 4 month researching binge, and I'll listen to a bunch of stuff. One of my favorite bands there is called Backspace.
Do you have any strategies that you use to stay curious? Because I'm trying to do this thing where, if I discover something and I love it, how can I help myself not destroy that thing by utterly crushing it with my desire to do it all the time, and therefore make a sustainable living out of it. And I think a lot of artists struggle with that conundrum. Like, I start something new, and it's really cool. And it comes from a very pure curiosity of, I just really want to research this thing, might as well talk about it. And like I kind of think of YouTube videos as you're creating your own personal Reddit threads, that where it's just kind of localized to you. Like the most exciting, and probably the same for you, the most exciting part about making the video is like discussing these hyper specific topics with people in the comments. And that is such a beautiful thing I want to protect. And then there's like the other part of my monkey brain that's like, number go up, I can make coin, you know?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's just that's a artist dilemma that has plagued everyone of every every
Yeah,
age ever.
a good friend of mine, he has a channel called Candid Jam, and we
Mhm.
talk about this all the time. He had a really fun video about the U2 album release that was forced upon
Oh, the
everyone's
wolves. Yes,
everyone's
yes.
iPhone.
Uh-huh.
Um, and he was greatly rewarded that it was one of these like randomly went viral videos. He had like
Uh-huh. Hmm.
and he's made some really cool follow-up videos afterwards, but they only get like a few thousand views, you know.
For sure. Yeah.
And I was telling him like it's honestly the same for me. Like I will have some videos that will just take off, pass a million views, and then to this day I still will post some that will get 15,000, which I'm
Insane.
grateful for.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
still an awesome number, but like to put it into my only source of income is the ad revenue. And if a video gets
Mm-hmm.
15,000 views, I think that's like $80.
Right. Yep.
And this is
Yep.
like three months of my life getting $80.
Working research. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Um so it's always in the back of my head like I want to I want to just do what's interesting to me,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to also crack that formula of what's going to make it go viral. I at least have to do that
Mm-hmm.
uh, a couple times a year if this is a
Yeah.
sustainable job.
Yeah.
And I finally have come to terms with the fact that I'm terrible at predicting this. Every time I think, oh, this will be my clickbait video this year, that
Mm-hmm.
one bombs.
Mm-hmm. And then something else completely random that you did not
Something,
expect. You thought the
yeah.
audience would love
So
this, or
I,
yeah.
I'm completely still figuring it out.
I think you're right. There's something in letting go of feeling like you have any sort of control over that sort of thing and just making what what lights you up.
Yeah, and like the greatest thing you can get is just people who like the way you think, to have that sort of safety net. I mean, that's why I think podcasting
Mm-hmm.
is would I would love to be a podcaster as opposed to a YouTuber, just because you maybe you have a smaller audience, but
The intimacy.
the same ones are there every week
Yes.
or every 4 days or however often you create one,
Yeah.
and you're not trying to knock it out of the park with one episode. You're just being yourself, and
You're
you're
showing up.
extroverting your curiosity. Yeah. Both the most successful musicians and YouTubers are going to be the ones that can stay authentically weird and just follow their passions. They're almost going to forget about going viral or take virality out of their business model, so they don't have to depend on they don't have to just keep hopping on trends to make a living. You just keep producing, doing what you do of quality, and you slowly build a dedicated follower base that's pay your paycheck just to keep doing what you do.
That was really beautifully well said. Thank you so much for being here. Woohoo!
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers, cheers.